thank you, Alex, for being here. I just wanted to start everybody off with an introduction to Alex Garcia, or Alexandra Garcia. Alex was a former student of mine who graduated in 2005, maybe?
That's right. Yep.
2005. And she took a couple of my photo classes and was also a graphic design major at the same time, and worked in our labs and was just an all-around presence in the photo program. And I love this story as well. In the end of the year Visions, the Visions Festival, Alex tied herself for first place and I swept. I think you won every category and you tied with yourself at a few of them. So to say that I have been like cheering you on and been like a big advocate of yours is an understatement. I just love all the work that you do and where you've begun, or where you're at now. So Alexandra Garcia is a senior story producer at the New York Times, where she directs documentary stories and interactive projects. Previously, she shot, reported, and edited videos, stories at the New York Times and the Washington Post for over a decade. In 2012, she was a fellow at the Nieman Foundation for Journalism at Harvard University. Garcia has been awarded top honors in the Edward R. Murrow Awards, the National Press Photographers Association, the Best of Photojournalism, and the Emmy Awards. She is obsessed with the internet and with trying to justify her time spent in art school by experimenting with how visual stories can break out of traditional mold. Garcia was born in Bogota, Colombia, and was raised in Rockville, Maryland. And thank you, Alex, for being here. I'm really excited to speak with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Leena, and it's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you too. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started with, what attracted you to photography and video as an artistic medium, and then what made you want to pursue visual journalism?
Hi, great. So basically, I started at an art school. When I was in high school, I was sure that I was going to be an artist, and so I went to the Maryland Institute College of Art for a couple of years. And I remember it was in one of those classes. It was in a design class. We were supposed to be making a book. And we had to go out and interview someone and then turn their story into a book. And we were supposed to design the book. And I remember through that process, I went out, this was a long time ago. So I went out with like a little tape recorder that had an actual cassette tape in it. And I interviewed this guy. And I remember being back in the design lab, transcribing his interview for the book and being like, oh my gosh, the real world is like so much more interesting than what's in my imagination. Like, I think I'd always loved painting and I love painting, but I feel like I just wanted to explore the real world. More than what was in my imagination at that point. So I was like, I'm going to be a documentary filmmaker. I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to be a documentary filmmaker. And then I transferred to American, and I remember I took one video course. And I remember it was like the beginning film and video course. And I remember this idea that like your visuals had to be perfect and your audio had to be perfect at the same time. And both of those two things at the same time just like did not compute in my brain. And so I was like, I'm going to stick with visuals. So that's when I really started focusing on photography. Obviously, your basic photography class, I will never forget. It like changed how I realized you could capture the world, like capture moments and capture movement, even in a still image. And I was like, that course was always quite special to me. And then, we had this like cohort of people who were in design and photography, and we were just there all the time. And it was all I wanted to do. And it was be with them and make projects. And I feel like through that, and then through Professor Gentile had an international, foreign correspondence class. Yeah. And I remember taking that class and being like, I want to work for a newspaper. I want to do photojournalism. I want to do this. And Professor Gentile actually recommended me, I remember, for an internship at the Washington Post. And that is how I ended up this was back in the day when nobody really cared about the internet. Like in journalism, it was like, oh, we got to do this World Wide Web thing. And so it was, I think, less competitive then than it is now to get those internships. And I remember I was the night and weekend photo editor. So at whatever age I was 20, in my early 20s, I was like picking the photos for the Washington Post homepage online, and it was like so much power, and it was so cool. Anyway, I kind of got off track, but that's sort of how I evolved from wanting to do painting into wanting to do documentary journalism, with like a lovely, wonderful time at AU in the middle that like basically launched everything for me.
Yeah, and I also fondly remember that you would, in my classes, you would do like multiple critiques. And I remember Melissa actually being like in our final fine art class critique, you were like, well, I have another critique here too. And she looked over and she's like, I've been with you night and day for the last 4 days in a row. When did you do this project on top of the other? And you literally did like 2 final critiques in every class that I had you with. So your hard work has clearly paid off, and reasons why we as the faculty, wanted to make sure that we could get you into at least the opportunities that we had at our feet. So I know you sort of answered this, but maybe there's some other courses. What other courses did you take at AU that inspired you? And are there any other personal experiences that helped to shape your work?
Yeah, I would say there are a couple of things. First of all, the design program at AU was quite important to me, I think, and I still think about it all the time. In both design and photography, I think that there's so much value in knowing how to make stuff, and make stuff in general, in whether it's in the tangible world or in the digital world. And I feel like I got so used to making stuff in that program, from working in the darkroom to making, I'm dating myself again, CD box sets in the design program. I feel like the value in learning how to make stuff, and then learning how to justify a concept, because I think something that has been pretty heartening to me is that I feel like in my work I've been able to have a lot of flexibility in doing stuff that's a little bit different, or trying to make stuff that feels unique. And I feel like I learned how to do that from being in school and having to justify a concept, whether it be for fine arts photography, like why did you choose to do a series about paper, taking photos of
Remember
paper?
that? Yeah, so beautiful. So beautiful. Yeah.
And or in the design lab, like why did you choose to take this direction with your CD box set? I feel like being forced to justify like really strong concepts, I feel like has really shaped the way that I approach work. Like it's my favorite part of the whole process is right at the beginning, when there's an idea, and obviously an idea that's grounded in reality because it's journalism, but that process of thinking of a unique or more an interesting way to tell that story, and having real thought behind it, and the ability to at least justify it to my bosses. I want to hire a shadow puppetry group to illustrate this story about a forger during a documents forger during the Holocaust, and like figuring out how to come up with a concept like, well, he worked in paper, he was forging documents, he worked in paper. I want to tell the story using paper. And so there are these this shadow puppetry company, and we can tell the story that way. Anyway, I'm getting off track again. But basically all of that stuff I feel like has shaped my work, all of those experiences.
Yeah, I think that's really speaks to your background as a fine artist, the painting and etc., all of that, because you're taking kind of the conceptual thoughts and saying, well, how can I apply them to something that's maybe data driven or real stories, but still making it engaging in ways that are a little bit more complex than maybe just the straightforward photo or a documentary might do. So I think that has a lot to do with your fine art background that's influencing, the way that you work, which clearly I'm a fan of. Yeah. Professor Gentile got you the internship at Washington Post, and then can you speak about from there on, like where did you go?
After I graduated, I was hired there, and I worked in web photo editing for the first couple years of my career at the Washington Post. So building photo galleries and picking photos for the homepage and picking photos for the articles. And there was this crew, this very cool crew of people at the Washington Post who at that time were experimenting with online video. It wasn't something that was like hugely available at that point. It was like people's internet connections were barely strong enough to like have anything longer than like a thumbnail shaped, like a thumbnail size image was all that like people's internet connections could handle. And so I remember being like, maybe I should explore this video thing again. But I had really been, I was really still scared of the video being perfect and the audio being perfect. So I started by doing audio for audio slideshows. So I would go out with a Washington Post photographer and they would shoot photos and I would do interviews. And then I would use that to form the spine of a story, pair it with photographs, and it became this now very sort of, you don't see it anymore, but it was an audio slideshow. And then I moved to having my colleagues at the Washington Post help teach me how to do video since I had bailed on it in college. And they were really kind to me and like taught me everything they knew while I was there. I would stay late or come in early and go on shoots with them and really learn. But I think like also learning how to do the audio for the audio slideshow helped me understand how to do an interview, how to tell a story using somebody's own voice, how to form a narrative, structure in audio or in audio-visual things. So then I switched to doing video at the Post and I did that for a while. And then I went on a fellowship. I wanted to learn more about interactive journalism and stuff that used video and other media and like how to bring it together. So I went to study a little bit of that. And then I got a job at the Times and worked on the video unit, working on both short documentaries and interactive projects for a few years. And then 2 years ago, the Times made the move into television. They got a show called The Weekly, and it was on FX and Hulu. And I worked on that season, and that was 30-minute documentaries, which was insane. And so things have changed since then. And so now it's called The New York Times Presents, and it's a series of 10 one-hour documentaries on FX and Hulu. Yeah. And so that's what I'm working on now.
So you've moved into the producer role, and so you're not really shooting. Are you shooting still, or you're not shooting? So they're wasting your talent there. But so you're currently the senior story producer for the New York Times, and can you talk about maybe we've talked about this in school a lot about how visuals kind of you can tell by an era the style of visuals, or you can certainly our histories and our cultures bring to us the aesthetic choices that we might make. And so you've been working now at the Post and at the Times, and these are like storied, certainly photojournalism storied places. How do you bring your own sensibility to that, and how does that sort of relate to the changings of the visual styles, or how do you contribute to that, or do you find yourself having to be stymied about certain things, or do you feel like you have say in pushing boundaries to, like you said, creating these shadow puppet and, using that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel very lucky to have worked on the web first, because I think at that time when I was working on the web, we were a separate company from the story newspaper. We were in Virginia, where the newspaper was in Washington, D.C. And so I feel like we had a lot of leeway to experiment at the Washington Post. And so I feel like I got into that mode. And I think that now, today, there is so much available on the internet that I think anything that helps work stand out, that you can see instantly, like, what is this? Something that is different or unique in either its visual style or in its audio choices, or something that's going to grab people. And there's so much competition for people's attention that I think it's great justification for keeping an artistic vision and for pushing for stuff to be different. And I think I've had really good editors who have encouraged, creativity and trying new things. I mean, you know, I remember getting a look when I suggested using shadow puppetry in a journalism piece, but I think that once my co-producer Samantha Stark and I explained to our bosses like what we wanted to do, they were like, "Okay, we'll try it." So I think it's also all about that, like making sure that you can stand up for your concept and like convince people that it's the right way to try to tell a story.
yeah, what have been some of your favorites work that you've made?
Let's see. What have been some of my favorites? Well, I'm gonna do a better job of explaining the Forger, which is the film about this man Adolfo Kaminsky, who saved thousands of children during the Holocaust by forging documents for them. And his story, he had never told anybody his story until he told his daughter, who wrote a book about him. And then when the book was going to be translated into English is when my colleague Samantha Stark and I got the book. We read the book from our colleague Pamela Druckerman and realized this guy's life. Like, originally we were like, well, should this be an interview? And we realized this guy's life was so dramatic and so much like a movie. We had to sort of show it in a way that was unique and interesting. So that's the one we told with shadow puppets. I did a story in 2017. The New York City subway system, I think, was having a similar fate to the Washington, D.C. subway system, where it was just like having its summer of hell.
Yeah.
It was just really having a lot of problems. And we had a couple of investigative reporters at the Times who were digging into what decisions were made by politicians, what happened that allowed the subway to get this bad into when it was declared under a state of emergency, in the summer of 2017. And I was really obsessed with doing a video about this, which I think was a little bit baffling to some people, because I think, local transportation isn't necessarily the most visual topic.
Yeah.
But I had been, I was in this with everybody. We were all late for all of our commutes. We were late for our meetings. And I remember standing on subway platforms and just searching Twitter to see if anybody was posting videos of what had happened. And there were just some amazing and amazingly compelling videos that were taken by my fellow commuters. And I would always look to see if anybody on my platform was posting and try to figure out who they were. And I wanted to figure out some way. There was so much drama in a video of a rat running loose in a subway car, a video of the temperature when it got so hot down in the subway that it was melting people. And I wanted a way to put that all together. And so I worked with another colleague to make a 10-minute piece about why the subways had gotten so bad. And we worked with the reporters to talk through some of the political decisions that led to that. My first real video story that I did at the Washington Post still sticks with me so many years later. And it was the first one that I kind of did on my own, which was in 2008. I think it was in 2008. And it was a story about remote area medical.
That's the one I was going to talk about. Yeah, that one I remember quite a bit. Right? Was that about the dentist?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Such a
Yeah.
strong piece. Yeah.
And I just remember going to um, this free medical clinic and realizing that people waited outside their cars for dental care and thinking it was just so shocking to me. But then talking to all of these people and having them narrate their own stories about why they oftentimes, like, I think people weren't thinking about people who are working have healthcare but might not have dental care and what that can do to people. And I still think about those people all the time. I think about that story a lot. I would say that's a pretty good summation.
Yeah, I would just add on my list of favorite things that you've done. I loved the interactive work that you did. I think you probably just started at the Times with the Olympics.
Oh, I love doing the Olympic stuff.
That was just so cool to me. And I kept on posting. We have a Facebook group for faculty and staff, just the school communication. And I just kept on posting on, this is an alum of ours, and I would just kept sharing your work because I was like, look how cool this is, So that really stuck out to me, that body of work as well. I follow you on Instagram and I'm just always blown away by that. Do you want to plug your handles or any social media where our students can follow you?
Sure. Sure. I mean, I will say, like, I feel like your students are probably so much more active and better at using the tools than I am. So, like, don't judge me too much, students. So my Instagram handle is Garcia_Alexandra. And yeah, it's so high pressure to put stuff up there. I'm really obsessed right now with the way that people now are using like short form video, from TikToks to like Instagram reels, and like the dance videos that people are doing and the way that they're being creative with like the filter where you can like move while the thing is moving. And I just, all of that stuff I'm like kind of obsessed with. So my stuff looks very old school compared to that, but I am deeply obsessed with Instagram, clearly.
I know my son, my 11-year-old son, has a TikTok video that has amassed 11,000 views. And I'm like, I don't think anything that I've done has amassed 11,000 views. So I'm like, how did that happen? So
That's amazing.
So I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I want to ask you one last question.
Sure.
What advice do you have for students who want to pursue something, this kind of career, or are artistic and, really want to work in photo or video and tell stories? Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that, like, I didn't realize when I was younger, I didn't realize when I was like making decisions originally that you could like be an artist and have like, and be a staff member at a journalism institution. It like didn't make sense to me. And so I would just say that there are so many more opportunities to, like, if you are an artist with like a creative vision, you're so unique and like you're so valuable to companies or institutions that are trying to stand out. And we live in an attention economy, and if you have creative ideas for how to grab and hold people's attention, and to get them to care about things that they didn't care about before, I would say it's like such a unique skill. And I think a lot of places are looking for that. I would also say that, like, I would be sure to work on having a career life balance. I think we are, at least I feel like I always had this idea of like, gotta work hard, everything's career. And I feel like you can have a great career and be successful and also have a life outside of that. And I feel like so often your life outside of that is what informs your work, and you make better work when you can relate to the people you're covering, the people you're interviewing, the people you're photographing, because you have a life that's outside of, work. And I would say to focus on that, and not forget about the rest of your life.
That's such great advice, because especially when you're just getting out of school and you feel like you've gotten your first opportunity, you feel like you have to just do it beyond what you normally, can handle. And no matter what field you get into, and I'm still trying to figure out that work-life balance as well. So as a, and I know you, and I know that that's gotta be something difficult for you, because you just are such an incredible storyteller, and I know the dedication you put into the work that you do. And so I'm really grateful for you giving us this time and giving us a little sneak peek into what you're doing now and catching up with you. And thank you so much,
Thank you
Alex.
so much for having
Yeah,
me.
it's
This was
so great
so
to catch up.
fun.
Yeah.